Hi, this is Michael Elder, and I am here to give a quick overview of our Credit by Demonstrated Mastery, or CDM process for what will be the spring 2016 testing window. However, the process, of course, begins here in the fall of 2015. So we're going to try to work through this as quickly as we can. We know that this is our third, or maybe it's even our fourth time through the Credit by Demonstrated Mastery process. Some schools have had a number of students attempt credit through this process, and others have not had many or even any. So we simply encourage our schools to make sure that students who might benefit by gaining credit through this two-phase process, that they get the information so they can make a good educated decision. And we will walk through that here as we go through today. So let's begin just with that, with the why Credit by Demonstrated Mastery and where did this come from. So those of you that have been with us for a little while, you know that one of the major stopping points for the Credit by Demonstrated Mastery up until the 2014 school year was the seat time requirement. And so when the seat time requirement was lifted, that meant that students didn't have to be in a physical class in order to for a certain amount of time in order to earn credit. However, this doesn't just open up for, well, just give credit when we want to give credit either. So we want to make sure that our kids know what they need to know before they move on to the next phase. So in Onslow County, Credit by Demonstrated Mastery is in place for any high school course in high school, with the exceptions that are listed on the list, and most of those exceptions are things like in the career technical field and in AP courses and things like that. But the vast majority of our high school courses are eligible for Credit by Demonstrated Mastery, as well as high school courses that are typically offered in the middle schools. So Math 1 being a prime example, although the timeline for Math 1 gets a little bit tricky for our middle schoolers. However, we have had several students attempt, and across the state we've had a number of students attempt credit in middle school for high school courses. So why do this process? Well, we know that some kids, and it's a small percentage, but some kids have already mastered the content for a course, or they're well prepared to move on to the next phase of a course before they even receive instruction. So one example that I typically give when we're together is the student who has been learning American history from his mother or his father for years and years and years, and then is going to take an American history course. Well, some students might welcome that opportunity because they may say, this is a great chance to earn a good grade, to really study something that I enjoy, and to really show how smart I am. While other students might say, well, I'd really rather replace that American History 1 course with something else that maybe is at a higher level, or that may allow me to even graduate early. So for a variety of reasons, Credit by Demonstrated Mastery is brought in to personalize education for our kids. Here in Onslow County, we've tried to make this as clean a process as we can, but if there are any questions, always feel free to contact me or contact Michelle Chadwick. We will be glad to walk through this with you or to help you in any way that we possibly can. So on your screen here, you've been looking at the timeline for Credit by Demonstrated Mastery. And so you will see here in October, so from basically October through the beginning of December, we give a 2-month window for our students to push the information out to them, to get it up on bulletin boards, to talk to the kids who might be interested, and just give us a nice window for students to apply. The application process is very important, however, because in many courses we don't prepare the artifact or the piece that they're going to have to do, the test and or the artifact that is, until we know they're actually students who are going to go through with the process. So we'll talk about some of those long-term implications and the process itself as we get into some further documents here. But in terms of a timeline, you can see here that basically we need the student's application submitted to us, and that typically comes to the school counselor first. So the school counselor would pass that on to Michelle or I and let us know that we have kids who are applying. That gives us December and really into January to create the phase 1 part of the process. And those of you who've done this for a while, you know phase 1 is an examination. If it's a course with an end of course test, then we give the end of course test. Some of the North Carolina final exams work for this as well. And so if there isn't one of those, then we have to create an examination. And so we give ourselves time to make sure we can build that for kids if they really need an exam. If the student successfully completes that exam, and that would typically happen in the last 2 weeks of February, as you'll see here, if they are successful with phase 1, so they've checked off the exam, then between March and April, we would meet with those students, and we usually meet with the parents or contact the parents to make sure they understand all those long-term implications, and they move here into phase 2, which is time to work on the student artifact. The student artifacts are different for each course. There's no set of artifacts out there. We do create these, or we lean on our neighboring counties who may have already done some of this artifact work. But the artifact is meant to assess the student's knowledge of anything that you couldn't tell through the examination. So, and if it's an EOC, for example, there's a lot of information or processes that are just difficult to make sure that students have in a multiple choice setting. So those are the kind of things they're typically application type products. And then we usually end up with some sort of interview just to make sure, again, not that the student knows everything about everything, but that they are ready for the next course in the sequence, or that they're showing mastery over that so they are ready to move on. Then we're looking here at late April, early May, they would share that artifact and we would get those results back to them. So this process takes a little bit of time. And this spring window is meant to inform the upcoming 2015, 2016, no, that's this year, sorry, the 2016, 2017 school year. So these would be for courses that kids would take that they would not have to take in the upcoming school year if they did okay this spring. So that's the timeline. Again, this timeline is on our website, and the website is over here on the left-hand side of our screen. So let's just make sure we've all got that page and that we're familiar with that. So our academicinnovation.weebly.com/CDM. This is where we house all of our CDM information, and so this timeline is there as well as everything else we're going to share here in the next few minutes. So that is kind of the why we do this and the timeline for it. So let's take a look at some of the supporting documents that have been created. We do have a brochure. We'd be glad to print this for your school if you'd like some for a table. A lot of times kids like to see, they just like a little bit better picture of CDM. The personalization of learning for some kids is a very natural process, and for other kids it's something that they're really not sure that I get to kind of control the courses I'm taking. So this list of questions in the middle is a list that was brainstormed both by us and some of our friends in Wayne County. So some of these are really important in this process. One being, let's see, do you really like a challenge in this course? Are you self-motivated? Does this line up with your goals for post-secondary education? So there are some real things that kids want to think about, not to scare them off by any stretch, but to make sure they understand that this is not something that they want to take lightly, that if they're trying to challenge, in essence, out of a course, that they really already have a firm grasp of that content. We also outlined the phase 1 and phase 2 process that we've talked about, the testing being phase 1 and the phase 2 being the product or the demonstration of what they've known. Let's take a look. This is just the one page of the brochure, so then the other side is just this. We try to answer a few questions on this side for our students, and our contact information is certainly here too. So if anybody wants to use this as a resource or you want any printed, just let us know. We'll be glad to do that for you. So that's our brochure. One of the other pieces, and this is the piece we ask all of our schools if they would to hang up, in their school. And this is our flyer. It's nothing fancy. It does give the kids a QR code. And so this is just a simple, if you think, giving them maybe in more student speak, if you think you've already got the content down for a high school course, you can go with this. You will need to get a level 5 or 94% correct. That's a big piece for kids because you can certainly know a lot about a course and not get a 94% correct on an exam. So that's a very high bar, and right now intentionally high, although that may adjust over time as we look at across the state and how many kids are being successful, and is this really a good measure of success for them. So for spring testing, again, these applications, as we just showed on the timeline, will go from that October 3rd to December 2nd. So we will ask our counselors and our schools, we'll be glad to print these again for anybody who would like them. But we'd like to see this in each school so that at the very least students can see that the opportunity is out there for them. That brings us to our frequently asked questions, and this is a document that was created several years ago by a team from across the state, and I wouldn't labor through this or force you to sit and listen to me read all these to you, but there are a lot of significant considerations for kids, and for us as educators to say what is applicable, what's not applicable. Is these questions like, is there a limit to the number of courses? Can you get course credit for honors courses and those kind of things? So there are a number of questions here, and these all came from the most commonly asked questions. So if this is again posted on our website, I would encourage all counselors, administrators, anybody who's in the CDM process to read through these. These answer a lot of the, like I say, a lot of the common questions. So I won't read through all these because, as you can tell, these go on for several pages, which is good because they answer a lot of the questions. I will key in on just a couple, one being this: anything that's in a course sequence, such as English 1, 2, 3, and 4, or Math 1, 2, and 3. Those courses come in a sequence, and CDM has to be completed in a sequence. So it isn't typical, as we've seen it, that students can do all 4 courses as is suggested here, mainly just because of the timeline. And also, students have to be able to demonstrate mastery over each course and not, for example, say, well, let me just try to challenge English 4, and if I do that, then I get credit for English 1, 2, and 3, because each course has its own set of standards, and there will be no way, or it would be immensely huge to try to get all those in one sort of assessment. So for those are 2 common questions that come up, like, can I skip a course and go to the 3rd one in the sequence? So that one comes up quite often. And I think, there we go. So these are some of ours that we summarized off here. CDM is a one-shot try per course. So if a student attempts biology, say as a rising freshman, that's it. They can't come back then after maybe taking a high school science course and try again. It's a one try per course if they're interested in doing that. So you will see those series of questions here, and again, we'll always come back to the links to us. Kids are always glad, or parents are certainly welcome to contact us, as well as any of you. And finally, another set of information that's important both for parents as well as students, and counselors as well, are the long-term considerations. So one of the things that coming out of the gifted department, and not that every student who would do CDM has to be gifted by any stretch, however, we do think that students who are going to go through the CDM process should have a really solid 4-year plan for high school. So if this is a rising freshman, there should really be a plan for, if I'm going to CDM out of this math course, well, then what math courses am I going to be taking along the way? And that way we get a really clear picture of where kids are and where they'll end up. So if it's an intent to be an early graduate, then we've laid out a course sequence for those years. If the intent is to get to higher level courses, then we've laid out that plan. There are several long-term considerations listed here, including some extracurricular and athletic pieces, the way we earn our credits, endorsements. So there are not nearly as many on this document as we have on the frequently asked questions, but there are some common questions when it comes to long-term considerations. We do ask that all of us as educational professionals understand all of these pieces. And if we have questions, or if you have questions, please feel free to contact us. That certainly is how we learn about what is being communicated clearly and where we can certainly do better. So I will again point you back to our CDM website here for Onslow County Schools. And that's right here, again, under Advanced Academics and CDM. So our documents are there. This presentation will be posted there. And one last time, I'll just say, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. We look forward to serving you and serving your kids, and look forward to the next time we get to chat.